For video number 4 of my budget katana series, let's take a look at something from a lesser known brand. Hello, this is Kyle, also known as AlienTube, and today I'm reviewing a katana sent to me by YariNoHanzo as a review sample. So YariNoHanzo, I don't really know a whole lot about them. I asked them for some info about their company, and they basically sent me kind of ad copy about their distributor, KatanaMart, which seems to be their distributor for a variety of European countries. Now, YariNoHanzo, from what I can see, is actually based in Italy, and KatanaMart distributes for a variety of, like I said, there are other European countries. But YariNoHanzo does offer worldwide shipping, and that's obviously how I got it, since I'm in the US. Judging by their website, YariNoHanzo seems to be dedicated to a variety of Japanese martial arts, not just swordsmanship. But they do have a wide variety of katana, ranging from very budget models in the 70 euro range up over 1,000 euros. And they do offer some customization options as well. I believe their blades are sourced from Longchuan, China, but I've also seen a report online that they make their own Koshirae. I don't know how accurate that is. Like I said, I wasn't really able to get a whole lot of information from the company. And one important thing to note is that all the katana on their website are listed as iaito, or blunt practice swords. You can get a shinken, a sharp, from them like this one is, but I think your best bet to do that is to contact them directly. So this specific katana is their Musashi Practical Katana, and it retails for right around 140 euros. What you get for that price is the katana, saya, a cotton sword bag, and a sword stand. And the saya does not come with a sageo by default. Adding a sageo adds around 15 to 19 euros depending on which type. Personally, I like not getting the sageo because I don't practice Japanese swordsmanship, so I don't really need the ability to tie it to my belt. Now, most katana I've reviewed come with a sword bag, and I never even bring it up because they are usually pretty just cheap cotton, and frankly, I don't really see any need for them. But I'm bringing this one up by YariNoHanzo because it's a little nicer than the other ones I've seen. It's got this nice purple color, which most of them are just black or have some pretty garish designs on them. But it also just has a nicer feel to it. It's not like high-end, it's not silk, but it's a nice feeling cotton bag, and I thought I should mention it. So this whole package for 140 euros is pretty good in my opinion. However, when you're adding in stuff like the bag, the stand, those add to the cost of producing the package. And I'm not so sure they're worth the addition. You know, when you're talking about an extreme budget katana, I kind of want all the money to go into the sword itself rather than the add-ons, as they don't really add a whole lot of value. But, you know, some people like that, so I guess that's a matter of opinion. The saya is a pretty simple look with a glossy black finish that shows fingerprints very easily. The fit is excellent. There's absolutely no rattle. I can hold it upside down, doesn't come out, and it takes pretty much no effort to draw. I can just, a flick of the thumb draws it out perfectly. One thing I like about this is that the shidomi on the kurigata are actually fixed in place. The vast majority of katana that I reviewed, once you take the sageo out of the presentation knot, these just fall right out. So it's nice to see that they are actually fixed in place. The koiguchi does look like it's made of horn, and the shaping in here is pretty decent, although the finish is a little sloppy. There's some lacquer slopped over in here. The kurigata looks like it's made of wood, and there's no separate kojiri. The flow from the tsuka to the saya is a little off. Ideally, you want the fuchi and the koiguchi to be approximately the same size, so it looks like it flows perfectly. And here the saya is definitely a little bit bigger than the fuchi. That's not exactly a big deal, especially at this price range, but it is something that could be improved. Let's take a look at the tsuka and the different koshirae. So the fuchi and kashira are made of brass, as well as the suba, and the casting quality here is pretty good. I don't see any casting lines. You can make out a decent amount of detail, which is a kind of like a leaf and stem design, and the straight edges are actually pretty straight. You know, you're never going to mistake these for handmade, but at this price point, they have a lot more detail and are much cleaner than I would expect. The minuki are also brass and they're blackened, just like the other pieces. And I'm really bad at telling what the design is on a Menuki. I can tell that there's like a samurai on them, but the actual design, I don't know. They look like they're two identical copies. Now, typically on a traditional Menuki set, they would be similar, but they have small differences. On a budget katana, you wouldn't really expect that much detail. And the casting quality on them is decent. It's around the same as the Fuchikatra, maybe a little bit less, but still pretty good. The Tsuka shape is nice and effective. It's a very simple one with no hourglassing. I believe that's called Riku shape. I'm not positive, but it does taper in thickness a little bit, getting thinner towards the Koshirae. And it's effective at edge alignment, and that's the most important thing. The Samaigawa is real, and something that is really nice at this price point is the panels are actually inlaid into the wood, not glued on top. Again, I'm saying this a lot. This is not something you see on this price range of katana very often. In addition, the Samaigawa actually has a decent amount of variety in nodule size. Now, there's no emperor nodes. I would never expect that at this price. But there's more than you would expect for, again, this price point. The Ito wrap is cotton, and it's pretty decent. It's a little looser than I would like, but I would consider it acceptably tight. It certainly has room for improvement on the tightness, but it's not egregiously loose. The diamonds are roughly similar in size, but the shape isn't particularly consistent. The transitions to the Fuchi and Koshirae are excellent. There's one tiny ledge on the Koshirae, but it's only noticeable when I get really close up, and it's not noticeable by touch at all. The biggest complaint I have about the Ito wrap is it's just a little bulky. All the knots here are a little bit larger than I feel like they should be, and these in knots are considerably larger and kind of sloppy, to be honest. The seppa are pretty much standard for budget katana. Hopefully you can see them here. They're made of brass. They have the little tooth edge to them. One thing that I really like is actually they don't overlap the tsuba. A lot of tsubas have, there's a spot here for the seppa to rest. I don't know what it's called. But a lot of katana, you'll see the seppa overlap it and just look a little sloppy. Here, they're pretty much perfectly fit. And especially the one on the Tsuka side, it's just a nice little pop of brass color and really adds to the look of the whole katana. The tsuba is your standard Musashi tsuba, and one thing I like about it is that there's some dimension to it. It's not just laser cut to shape or water cut to shape, however they do cutting out of materials, but there's some dimension to it. There's some chamfering and some overall attention given to the tsuba so that it's not just bland and plain. The habaki is pretty much a standard habaki. It's on here nice and tight, and the fit here, there's quite a bit of gap there, but it's not terrible. One thing I do like, though, is that there's some texturing here on the mune side of the habaki, just adding a little bit of visual appeal. And now it's time to talk about the business end, the blade. As usual, here's my measurements. So a couple of interesting things. The katana starts at 7 millimeters thick and distally tapers pretty evenly down to about 5 millimeters thick. This is about 30% distal taper, which is on the low side for a katana, but it's still within reason. What I find really interesting, though, is that the weight of this katana is about 150 grams off spec. That's quite a big difference, and it makes the sword feel a lot lighter. I'm not sure why it's so much off their specs, because that much extra weight implies that perhaps there would be even less distal taper, which seems a bit off. The blade is advertised as being made from 1060 high carbon steel. This is a little bit on the lesser carbon side than a lot of katana you'll find available as reproductions, which basically means that the edge is going to be a little bit less hard, a little less, it's going to keep the edge a little bit worse, but it's also going to be a tougher blade. It's not going to chip as easily. It is deferentially hardened, and the hamon is visible, but it's pretty subtle. It's a notari or wave design, and in the right light, like right now, I can't even see it, but it's definitely there and visible. It is reverse polished, where the hamon is the brightest part of the blade. Pretty normal at this price point. And the rest of the blade is polished decently. It's close to mirror, but it's kind of a soft polish and not particularly high-end because, again, this is a budget katana. It looks nice enough, and there's absolutely no rippling on the blade at all. So well done on that. The bohi are nice and straight. Again, no rippling here. And while the terminations are a little sloppy, they're not bad, and they do end on almost the exact same place on both sides. The yakote is purely cosmetic. There is no change in geometry here. And the polish of the kisaki is it's basically polished in a different direction rather than the burnishing and correct polish of a kisaki that you would see on a traditionally polished katana. But again, at this price point, not expected anything more than this. The edge beveling is very good here. From the edge of the bohi, right at the shinogi ji, down to the edge, it's all one smooth bevel. There's almost no niku here. In fact, there really isn't any niku here, which might actually account for the lesser weight. I don't know if they normally put niku into these, but this one certainly doesn't have any. That makes it a good light cutter, but it's not going to be particularly heavy-duty cutter. Sharpness-wise, very sharp. That's pretty much no effort on my part. I'm just driving the katana forward and letting it do the cutting. Let's try just the kisaki. It's quite sharp. The kisaki might be a touch duller than the rest of the blade, but only very slightly. This is a very effectively sharp blade. Let's take a look at some cutting footage. So this is a fun and effective cutter. I really enjoy using it. Because it is so light, it makes for a very fun, easy, nimble sword to move around. I'm not going to do a whole lot right here because I've got a ceiling fan right above and I do not want to hit it with the katana. But overall, it's a lot of fun to swing, to move around. Edge alignment is very easy, and overall it's fun to use. It's balanced, let's see, right around, I believe, around 5 inches or so, maybe 4. Good place for a katana to be balanced at. Let's talk about some areas that could be improved. The biggest one is definitely the Ito wrap. It could be tighter, and the knots could be a little bit more streamlined, especially the end knots could really use to be tightened up a little bit. The polish on the blade could be improved a little bit, just bring it a little bit brighter and get the hamon to be the correct milky color rather than the shinogi ji. Lastly, my biggest concern with this blade is the weight differential from the specs. 150 grams is quite a bit of weight to be off, and it makes me concerned that the quality control may not be there. And now it's time to talk bottom line. This katana sells for roughly 142 euros, but I should add that shipping does add to that cost. I went online and checked the shipping, and to get to me, it would be 42 euros. That brings us close to $200 for this. Is it worth that price? Heck yes. This is easily the best budget katana I've used. I've tested quite a few at this point. Ryujin, Hanban, Swords of Northshire, Jeiku, Cloudhammer, Romance of Men. I'm probably forgetting some in here. This one gets, what a lot of those companies get wrong, YariNoHanzo seems to get right. A lot of the attention to detail in the mounting is there, where it's not on those other katanas. Sure, the blade is kind of basic, the polish is pretty low, but in terms of functional sword and attention to detail, YariNoHanzo gets a lot right that these other brands don't get right. And nothing that I see as flat out wrong. Sure, the Ito wrap could be tighter, but it's not egregiously loose. It's effective at this tightness. And overall, it's a very fun katana to use, and I'm just really impressed by it, especially at this price point. And that's going to wrap up my review of this YariNoHanzo Practical Musashi katana. Stay tuned in 2 weeks for the final video of my budget katana series. This time it'll be of an Anakubi Zukuri sent to me by Romance of Men. Until next time, Alien 2'd out.